Our relationship was a dream. Until I followed her one night. I'm not sure if I should even be telling you this. It's well past midnight as I'm typing these words. And every time I close my eyes, I can still see the flicker of the streetlight and the way her shadow moved against the wall. My hands won't stop shaking. I never thought a single decision following her that one night would unravel everything I believed about love, trust, and what we're willing to risk for the people we care about. If you think this will end with a neat bow, I have to warn you, I'm not entirely sure how it ends at all. I guess I should start at the moment I realized my life would never be the same. My name is Ethan, though it hardly matters now. I worked, as a freelance graphic designer in a city that never really felt like home. A few months ago, I was just an ordinary guy who woke up, made coffee, and went about his day. I'd scroll through social media, see people in happy relationships, and wonder if I was missing a crucial piece of life. Then I met Madison, and for a while I swear it was like something out of a daydream. Warm nights talking till dawn, late breakfasts full of laughter, long drives where we'd belt out our favorite songs with the windows down. She was wild and earnest in a way I'd never experienced before, and I told myself I'd do anything to keep her in my life. I should have noticed the subtle clues from the beginning. She never mentioned her parents. She'd deflect whenever I asked about old friends. And sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and find her quietly standing by the window, staring out into the darkness as if she were waiting for something. Still, we all have our quirks and ghosts, right? I chalked it up to personal baggage she wasn't ready to share. But then things got strange. I remember it so clearly. She received a phone call at around 2 in the morning. We were half asleep, and I felt her tense up next to me in bed. She whispered something, grabbed her jacket, and slipped out without a word of explanation. I waited for her until nearly 4, heart pounding with worry. But she returned without so much as an apology or reason. Her eyes were distant, as though she'd seen something horrifying that she couldn't unsee. The next day, she tried to act normal, smiling, joking, pressing a warm kiss to my cheek, but there was an undercurrent of desperation in her voice. I can't explain it, but I sensed that whatever she'd done, it was bigger than just a midnight stroll. A week later, she vanished again at an odd hour. This time, I caught her in the hallway of my apartment building before she could leave. "Madison, what's going on?" I asked, grabbing her arm gently. She yanked it away, her breath coming in short, shaky bursts. Her eyes flicked to the elevator, then to the exit door, as if she were a cornered animal. "Don't!" she said, her voice quivering with urgency. I can't talk about it right now. I promise it's nothing. I'll come back soon." "But is someone threatening you?" I pressed, my heart thudding. She shook her head, avoiding my gaze. "No, it's complicated. Please, Ethan, just let me go." Before I could say anything else, she darted out the door, leaving me more confused than ever. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that she was just dealing with some personal issue, maybe an old debt or a family problem, but something in her face that night, like fear braided with guilt, made it impossible to sleep. Eventually, I caved and did the one thing I'd promised myself I wouldn't do. I followed her. It was a Tuesday night, cold enough that I could see my breath in the glow of the street lamps. She left my apartment at 1 in the morning, phone in hand, her mouth set in a grim line. She was so distracted that she barely checked behind her, and I stayed half a block away, pulling my hood up to blend into the silhouettes of late-night stragglers and parked cars. She walked fast, as though someone were timing her. We wove through half-lit streets and silent intersections until we reached an older, rougher part of the city, with crumbling brick facades and iron doors scarred by graffiti. She stopped in front of a boarded-up building, a squat, abandoned structure that might have been a store a decade ago. Her phone glowed briefly under her chin. She checked something, then slipped inside through a side door. I snuck closer, the hairs on my neck prickling with adrenaline. For a moment, I debated whether I should turn back. Maybe it was just a private meeting with a counselor or a friend she didn't want me to know about, but my gut told me that wasn't the case. I peered through a missing plank in one of the windows. Inside, I caught a glimpse of Madison talking to someone, a woman with short-cropped blonde hair and a face that looked like it had seen 1,000 sleepless nights. The woman handed her something small and silver. I couldn't tell what it was from my vantage point. Madison clutched it with trembling hands, then nodded vigorously, as though she were agreeing to terms. I strained to hear their voices. It was impossible to catch every word, but I gleaned something about needing more time and not wanting anyone else involved. My blood chilled when the stranger said, "If he finds out, you'll both regret it." Madison just lowered her head. Then the woman's phone rang, and the ring echoed through the empty space. They spoke quietly, and soon Madison handed over a slim envelope. The woman glanced inside, gave a curt nod, and offered a parting line that raised every hair on my body. "Let's hope this is enough to keep him quiet. You'd hate for Ethan to suffer, wouldn't you?" I nearly stumbled back in shock. I had no idea who that woman was, but she clearly knew my name, and she was using it against Madison. My heart hammered so loud I could feel it in my teeth. I crouched behind a broken crate near the window, praying they wouldn't notice me. As they wrapped up their business, I scrambled to hide in the shadows of the alley outside. Madison emerged alone a minute later, clutching her jacket tight around her. Her expression wrenched my heart. She looked haunted, like someone who'd just signed a deal with the devil. I waited until she walked away. Then I ducked behind corners, following her at a distance until she reached a main street and hailed a cab. She stared at her phone the whole ride back, her leg jittering anxiously. I wondered if she was rehearsing some excuse to give me, or if she truly intended to say nothing at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every word I'd overheard. You'd hate for Ethan to suffer. Who was that woman? Why did she have so much power over Madison? And how was I already tangled up in this without my knowledge? The next morning, Madison tried to pretend everything was normal. She cooked eggs, greeted me with a sheepish smile, and asked if I wanted coffee. The tension in her shoulders, though, was impossible to miss. I decided to wait, to see if she would offer some sort of explanation. When she didn't, I calmly asked, "Hey, so, where were you last night?" She froze for half a second, an almost imperceptible glitch in her composure. Then she shrugged, eyes sliding away. "I couldn't sleep, so I went out for a walk." "Madison!" I said her name softly, but my voice trembled with anger. "I know you weren't just taking a walk. I followed you." Her entire body tensed, and she slowly set the coffee mug on the counter. You what?" My heart clenched at the betrayal in her gaze, but I stood my ground. "I saw you go into that abandoned building. I heard you talking to someone about me, about how you didn't want me to suffer." She opened her mouth, then closed it, tears pooling in her eyes. "Oh God, Ethan, you weren't supposed to. It wasn't supposed to involve you. I was trying to protect you." "From what?" I demanded. "Tell me so I can help. I'm tired of living in the dark." Her eyes flickered with a painful mixture of guilt and resignation. "I don't know where to start," she whispered, hugging herself. "I owe someone. A group of people, actually. Far more than money. It's complicated. My family has a history of dealing with them. It's like a cycle I inherited. Something that pinned me down the moment I became an adult. I swore I'd never let it touch anyone I loved." Blood roared in my ears. "Madison, you can't face this alone. If you're in trouble, we should go to the police." Her laugh was hollow. "You think I haven't considered that? Ethan, these people are connected. It's not just some petty criminal ring. They have politicians in their pocket, police commissioners on their payroll. Running to the authorities would put a target on both our backs." Every nerve in my body buzzed. This sounded too big, too insane. And yet the dread in her expression, the raw fear, made me believe her. "What do they want from you?" I asked softly, bracing myself. She swallowed hard. "They've been using me to move goods. I guess you could say. Some of it's contraband. Some of it's documents that people pay a fortune to keep off the radar. I don't know all the details, but I do know I'm their messenger. And if I fail to deliver or if I talk, they'll punish me. And if they think you know too much, they'll come after you too." My gut twisted. The woman at the warehouse was probably one of their intermediaries. "Madison, you can't keep doing this." She pressed her lips together, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I've been trying to pay off a debt. If I finish this one last job, I'm hoping they'll let me go, let me finally be free. I didn't want you to find out because it was always supposed to be temporary. I wasn't supposed to fall in love." She broke off, sobbing. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her tremble against me. Part of me was furious at her for lying, but a bigger part just wanted to shield her from whatever nightmare she was trapped in. "We'll figure it out," I said, though I had no idea how. "We'll find a way out of this, together." She nodded into my shoulder, and for an instant, it felt like things might be okay. But the deeper we sank into that conversation, the more I realized how big this was. I asked for details, names, places, anything we could use to blackmail them or secure our safety. But every question only made her flinch. "They're too powerful," she kept saying. "If we try to turn the tables, they'll kill us both." I didn't see another option but to help her, to stand by her side, though each passing day weighed heavier on my conscience. We made a plan. She'd fulfill her final delivery, under my watchful eye, though, and then we'd skip town. Start fresh, somewhere far away, somewhere these people couldn't reach us. It was a flimsy hope, but hope was all we had. That final delivery was supposed to happen on a Friday night. The lead-up was excruciating. She wasn't sure where the handoff location would be. They liked to change things at the last minute, as if paranoid about being tracked. We waited for the phone call that told her where to go, both of us on edge. I swear I could hear our hearts pounding in the silence of the living room. The call finally came around midnight. She answered with trembling fingers, nodded a few times, murmured a, "Yes, I understand," then hung up. When she looked at me, her eyes were hollow. "They want me at Pier 74 in an hour. I have to bring a black briefcase. They left it in my mailbox earlier today. I didn't peek, but it feels heavy." I stood, blood rushing in my ears. "I'm coming with you." She shook her head. Ethan, no, they'll know. I'll stay hidden, I insisted. I can't just let you walk into the lion's den alone. She stared at me, tears shimmering again. This is exactly why I kept you out of it. I can't lose you. And I can't lose you, I replied, my voice shaking. We do this together. We drove through the city in near silence. The roads were dark and slick with rain. My stomach twisted in knots every time headlights swept across the windshield, fearing it might be one of their cars following us. When we finally reached the pier, I parked a few blocks away, where an old warehouse cast long shadows over the deserted street. We hurried along the water. The smell of salt and fish thickened the damp air. Pier 74 was a sorry sight. Rusted fences, broken street lamps, and a few cargo containers that looked abandoned. Madison clutched the black briefcase with a death grip. I'll go under that broken light, she told me. That's where they said to meet. We agreed I'd watch from behind a crate, close enough to intervene if something went wrong. My heart hammered so hard I felt nauseous, but I tried to steady my breathing as she approached the faintly glowing circle of the flickering streetlight. It didn't take long for two figures to emerge from the darkness. Both wore hooded jackets, their faces obscured. One had a broad, hulking frame. The other was wiry, constantly looking around like a nervous animal. I couldn't hear their words at first. The ocean wind carried them away. All I saw was the shorter one stepping forward, outstretching a hand. Madison offered the briefcase, and the bigger figure snatched it, popping it open just enough to peek inside. My skin crawled as I watched them speak. The bigger one shook his head and said something that made Madison recoil. She looked panicked, gesturing frantically as though begging them to understand. The wiry one lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke that clouded around them in the dim light. I edged closer, trying to hear more. That's when I caught fragments of their conversation. Not enough. Interest has built up. We need more. Madison's voice carried a tremble. I was told this would settle everything. Please, I can't do this anymore. The taller one flicked a glance across the pier, and I ducked behind the crate, heart pounding. Then he spoke, loud enough for me to catch. There's someone else here. We can sense it. You brought your boyfriend, didn't you? Panic punched me in the chest. They knew. Somehow, they knew I was lurking in the shadows. Madison shook her head fiercely, but her voice betrayed her. He doesn't know anything. Let him be. A cold laugh echoed. You're in no position to make demands. If he's here, you've broken the rules. That means we need more insurance. I realized that if I didn't act, they might hurt her. Without thinking, I stepped out, raising my hands to show I wasn't armed. Stop, I called, my voice echoing across the empty pier. I'm here. It's my fault. Let her go. Madison gasped when she saw me. The two strangers turned, eyes glinting with anger. The taller one pulled out a small handgun, training it on me. So you are real, he sneered. You have a death wish or what? My pulse hammered, but I forced myself to keep steady. We just want out. That's all. If you take that briefcase and leave us alone, we'll disappear. He barked a harsh laugh. It doesn't work like that, kid. You think we don't know how these things go? You'll run off to the cops or some crusader who wants to shut us down. We need a guarantee that you two will stay quiet. The wiry one tossed his cigarette into a puddle. We'll take her. You can go. If you breathe a word, you'll never see her again. That's how we guarantee silence. Madison's eyes brimmed with tears and she clutched my arm. Ethan, get out of here, she whispered, voice cracking. I glanced at her. Not without you. A tense standoff ensued. The tall man motioned with the gun, ordering me closer. A swirl of wind whipped across the pier, carrying the taste of salt and dread on my tongue. I knew we had no chance in a direct confrontation, yet the idea of letting them take Madison was unthinkable. I had no plan, no weapon, just raw desperation. My gaze flicked to the black briefcase. It was still slightly open, revealing stacks of cash. No wonder they wanted more. It was probably never going to be enough for them. They'd keep extorting her forever. My adrenaline spiked, and I charged, going for the gun. It was reckless and stupid, but fear of losing Madison overwhelmed any sense of self-preservation. I barreled into the taller man, and the gun went off with a deafening crack. For a split second, I felt nothing. Then my shoulder exploded in pain, and I stumbled back, breath caught in my throat. Madison screamed, rushing to me. The wiry man lunged, grabbing her and pinning her arms behind her back. The taller man stood over me, gun barrel aimed at my forehead. Blood pounded in my ears, and all I could think was, this is how it ends. I watched his finger tense on the trigger. My vision blurred, the edges turning black. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the darkness, commanding and furious. Drop it! The pier exploded with light as half a dozen flashlights swept over the scene. Shouts filled the air. I heard the clatter of metal as the gun hit the ground. The wiry man released Madison, cursing. Footsteps thundered on the old wooden boards. Men and women in tactical gear flooded forward, screaming orders. The smugglers sank to their knees, hands raised. Somehow, amid the chaos, One of the figures knelt beside me. "We've got a civilian down!" She barked into a radio. She glanced at the bullet wound on my shoulder. "You'll be okay. Ambulance is on its way." I blinked in confusion. Who were they? Cops? Agents? It all felt surreal. I turned my head to look for Madison. A paramedic was already guiding her away from the scene, wrapping a blanket around her shaking frame. A wave of relief washed over me, so intense I almost fainted. In the aftermath, we learned it was a federal sting operation. A special task force had been tracking that criminal network for months, waiting for a major exchange to bust them. They hadn't known about Madison specifically, but they recognized her as a courier the moment she showed up. Our presence at the pier was both a blessing and a complication. The agents ended up taking us into protective custody for several days, gathering statements and trying to piece together the full scope of the syndicate's operations. Madison confessed everything she knew, tears in her eyes, voice trembling with relief and fear. The agents promised they'd do their best to protect her. Me? I was wheeled into surgery to have the bullet removed, drifting in and out of consciousness. When I finally woke up in a hospital bed, Madison was there, holding my hand, tears on her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "You got hurt because of me." I squeezed her hand. "I'd do it again," I whispered, "to make sure you're safe." The aftermath wasn't all sunshine and roses. The criminal network had tentacles everywhere, and even with some key players arrested, we were warned that others might come looking for us. We entered a witness protection program of sorts, relocated to a new city under different names. The emotional scars lingered. I had nightmares for weeks. Images of that gun pointed at my face, the taste of iron in the air. Madison had panic attacks whenever a phone rang unexpectedly. Yet, as terrifying as it was, we also felt a strange gratitude. We were free. She no longer had to sneak around, exchange envelopes and suitcases for shadowy figures. I no longer had to wonder what secrets she was keeping. We had a chance, finally, to build a life together, albeit one stitched together from the wreckage of what we'd been through. Sometimes we lay awake at night in our new apartment, hands entwined, talking about the life we almost had, the nights we stayed up late laughing, the mornings we strolled to the coffee shop. It feels distant now, like a half-remembered dream. Our relationship was so perfect in the beginning, like a fairy tale. We were invincible, or so we thought, and then reality crashed down on us. I still see the shadows of that pier in my mind. Sometimes I'll wake up sweating, convinced I can hear the echo of that gunshot. But then Madison stirs beside me, a gentle reminder that we survived. Even if we lost our old names, our old routines, we found a truth that matters more. We love each other enough to face unimaginable danger. We risked everything to hold on. Do I regret following her that night? My shoulder aches whenever a storm rolls in, and the scar is still fresh. But regret? No. If I hadn't followed her, who knows how far she would have been pulled into that darkness. Maybe I would have lost her for good, never knowing the real reason she vanished. In the end, the illusions of a perfect love gave way to something more tangible, a bond forged in the crucible of shared fear, loyalty, and a determination to survive. After the operation, the doctors kept me for observation. For 3 long days, I drifted in and out of medication-induced fog. Madison was there for almost every minute, holding onto my hand, gazing at me with such profound sorrow that sometimes, even through the haze, I felt her heart break more sharply than my own pain. I remember a nurse asking her if she was my wife, and for the briefest moment she hesitated. Then she nodded, forcing a smile so the staff would let her stay. That word, wife, hung in the sterile hospital air like a promise we hadn't made, but might someday keep. When we were finally released into the protective custody of the agents, I had to learn how to move my arm again, how to deal with the bullet wound's stinging ache every time I shifted too fast. The agents made us sign a stack of documents, telling us about new IDs, new backgrounds, entire new histories we had to memorize if we wanted to avoid any chance of being tracked down by the remnants of that criminal organization. At night, Madison and I would lie awake on separate cots in a safe house, listening to distant sirens and the low hum of traffic outside. We'd talk about the future, about the little house we might rent if we ever got out of this, the dog we might adopt. In those whispered dreams, we clung to each other's words like lifelines. Eventually, they relocated us to a small town a few states away, a quiet place surrounded by rolling hills and farmland. The house we rented was modest, with beige siding and a porch that creaked whenever we stepped onto it. I learned how to make coffee using a beat-up percolator that came with the place, and Madison found a job at a local diner, wearing a retro uniform and serving pie to regulars who barely knew how to pronounce our new last name. In the evenings, we'd sit on that creaky porch, sharing stories of who we used to be, and piece by piece, we let go of the guilt and terror, replacing it with cautious optimism. Still, There were days when everything felt unreal, when the memory of that pier would slam back into my mind. I'd hear the echo of that gunshot or see the flash of those tactical lights. I'd catch myself checking the street for black SUVs or suspicious figures. Madison struggled too. Her hands sometimes shook when she counted out change for customers at the diner, or she'd jump at the sound of a slamming car door. We both carried those invisible wounds. Yet, every morning, we woke up together, alive and free, and somehow that was enough. Sometimes, Madison would trace the scar on my shoulder gently with her fingertips, tears brimming as she apologized once more for dragging me into her nightmare. I'd kiss her forehead and remind her that I wasn't dragged anywhere. I chose to follow her because letting her face that darkness alone was never an option. Over time, we tried to find beauty in the ordinary moments, like watching the sun set over fields of golden corn, or cooking dinner side by side in our cramped little kitchen, teasing each other about who chopped vegetables better. It wasn't the life we'd imagined when our love was fresh and new, back in the city, but it was ours. Do we ever talk about marriage, kids? All the things normal couples plan? Sometimes in whispers. We're not sure if we'll stay in this town forever, or if the shadow of our past will push us to run again. But for now, we live day by day, forging a new dream from the ruins of the old one. When the nightmares come, and they always do, we hold each other until the shaking stops, until we can breathe again. It might not be a perfect fairy tale, but it's the closest thing to hope we've ever had. That's our story. From the moment I followed her one night, everything changed, and we've been running on a razor's edge ever since. But we do it together. I guess that's what real love is. An unbreakable bond that stands firm when every safe harbor is stripped away. Sometimes it's messy and dangerous and full of scars, both seen and unseen. Sometimes it's the only light in an endless night. We hold on to it for dear life, praying that tomorrow brings just a bit more peace than today, and that the new names we've been given won't be the only thing defining us. Maybe we can still define ourselves, no matter who tries to take that away. Maybe that's what makes us truly free.